From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. Ahead for you today, K-State's Dan O'Brien will report on grain basis levels at 9 elevators around Kansas and how the ongoing surge in grain futures is affecting local prices for corn, grain sorghum, soybeans, and wheat. Then K-State's Jonathan Aguilar, along with the Nature Conservancy's Heidi Mehl, will discuss a project now underway in the Rattlesnake Creek Basin in central Kansas. This will promote adoption of irrigation technology advances by producers and will evaluate the impact of those technologies on irrigation efficiency. There's a great lot to that project, and Heidi and Jonathan will fill us in. And standing by to talk Kansas agricultural weather, K-State's Mary Knapp. It's all right here on this Agriculture Today.
Make hand washing a healthy habit everywhere you go. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after going to the bathroom, before, during, and after preparing food, and before eating. If soap and water aren't available, use a hand sanitizer that has at least 60% alcohol. Life is better with clean hands. A message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
You're listening to the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. Thanks for joining us as we pick up on these grain markets, and it's a pleasure to talk about them once more. Dan O'Brien, grain market economist, K-State Research and Extension, is with us. And one of the things we'll do as we go along here, Dan, is update folks on local grain basis around Kansas in the wake of what's been a meteoric rise in these markets. It's been a whale of a week. The trade did take a pause to a certain extent yesterday, but you just look at the corn and soybean trades and you marvel at what's going on.
Well, you do. And of course, part of this may have to do with optimism in the stock markets happened in recent days too, general euphoria. And within ag, be a combination of ongoing Chinese demand for soybeans for sure, and then also for corn that's emerged, as well as concerns about South America, dry conditions, et cetera, and as well as labor issues, potential for stoppages in Argentina of shipments, et cetera. I would say in the materials that we put together, we do look at some satellite data on drought information in South America that you can look at. And it is notable that in some key ag production areas that things are pretty dry. And market has taken the attitude towards that gee whiz, we'll see strong buying from China in these markets at the same time that they're having a threat to their crops. So I looked at where we were about a month ago. Soybeans are $2 a bushel higher than they were in mid-December. So that's amazing. Yeah. For corn, we were trading a lot at $4.20, $4.30, and we were amazed at that. And here on yesterday's close for the March contract, $4.94. Of course, the new crop contracts are somewhat lower than both of those prices, and we'll have a chance to look at those. But the upfront contracts are certainly in the moonshot category, particularly for soybeans. We're beans in the teens and wondering if we're going to go higher. And we'd seen that action this week, down a little bit some yesterday. We'll see where things close today at. One question that you and I have talked about is that, yes, we see what's happening on the futures, what's happening in basis.
Let's get a handle on those basis levels at our locations around Kansas. What you've done this week, Dan, is you've picked 6 locations, 2 in each of the thirds of the state, to put it that way. And on corn, what's going on in that respect?
Well, in the western third of the state, you got patterns for basis trends over the last 6 months in Colby, Garden City, a representative that is similar to what we've seen for grain sorghum. Now that the levels are higher for sorghum, in the Colby location, you see sorghum basis bids of $1.10, $5, $10 over. Corn basis from 5 to 10 cents over, et cetera. Garden City, corn basis bid at about 30, just under 30 cents over. In Garden City, at that location we've been monitoring, about $1.25. So strong basis bids. And I can tell you that when we go talk with farmers, just a lot of interest in planting grain sorghum. this year, particularly on non-irrigated cropland. It'll be really something to see what happens to non-irrigated corn acres and non-irrigated grain sorghum acres this year. And with the strong cash bids, you even pull in, if people feel they have moisture, what do we do with fallow? Well, maybe we don't even fallow, given the type of prices we're seeing, just tremendous prices. As you head to the east, central part of the state, for corn, Salina, Hutchinson locations, still pretty strong, but say in Salina, about 17 under for corn, about 500 or 600 in the Hutchinson for corn basis. Strong export-driven basis levels for sorghum in the Salina area, close to about $1.30, $1.40 or more over for the lead contract in terms of basis. In the Hutchinson area, $1.10 or so really strong there. And maybe the difference between corn and sorghum expresses itself in the eastern third of the state more. You see sorghum basis bids, again, upfront lead contract, cash basis in the Topeka market, again, central terminal type of a market situation, $1.40, $1.50 over. Columbus down southeast, 50 over. You go look at corn basis bids in those same areas. Well, in Topeka, we're looking at about 18, 20 under for corn there, and about 10 over for corn there. So in Columbus. So you do have this differential. We have amazing optimism in sorghum. We have a very strong but very narrow demand base. I still think that when we're so dependent on basically that one strong market, that it's wonderful to have these opportunities. You'd sure wonder about risk management moves. I would say now that really the issue now that we're looking at, we're into January. Well, gosh, in February, we'll be determining our crop insurance guarantee price. On yesterday's closes, we had the Deese 2021 corn closing about $4.41. Well, if we average something over $4, $4.25 to $4.50, somewhere in there, that's a tremendous price for crop insurance guarantees. So we have those type of things that we're looking at, and I think that those crop insurance guarantees are growing more frontal in the minds of our Kansas ag producers as they start looking at what crops they might put in the coming year.
We assume, Dan, that the soybean basis around Kansas is off the charts. Is it?
Not as much as you would think. It's stronger for sure than where it has been in the past, but it's not as exorbitantly high relative to its recent history as sorghum has been. That's for sure. And it kind of varies some by parts of the state. Again, you look out to the western part of the state, kind of focusing on Garden City, you've got a basis of about 70, 80 under. For soybeans, you go to the Salina, Hutchinson area, you're looking at closer to 40 to 50 under in that range, maybe a little better than that in the Salina area. Go to Topeka, you're about 30 under. At Columbus, you're about 50 under. So, relative to what we've seen on sorghum, that's still pretty good prices. But those basis bids are relative to futures closes yesterday of $13.60. So as we've run up, we have a better basis, more healthy basis than we've seen, combined with tremendous futures prices up on the front side. Really, the question is, I don't have it right in front of me, is what are those basis bids when we start to look out to the November contract? And as well for Deese corn driven forward contracts for corn and sorghum. So that's kind of what I wonder. We see up front to build our market expectations, but our actual committable contract prices are out there with a phone call to the local grain elevator that'll buy it, or feedlot, or whatever, depending on what you're selling, to actually get you a commitment. Of course, our farmers, they're all very aware of this, but that's really our issue, I think. We have great prices now. What will they be when we get out to the fall? That November bean price right now is $11.53. That's fully $2 less than what we have right now for the March contract. The corn contract, March, $4.94, $4.41. For Deese, as we talked about. So, and we haven't even got to wheat yet. So we've got some tremendous prices to work with, but I guess it's all just kind of hope and speculation until we actually make a commitment.
One has to be astute in their marketing approach here to capitalize on that for new crop now as we discuss it.
Yes, we've got great opportunities and nothing in the ground unless you're talking about wheat.
Let's talk about wheat to finish out here. And basis around Kansas, not nearly as overwhelming, if you will, one assumes, as for certainly corn and grain sorghum or soybeans.
Uniformly good basis bids, equal to or slightly better than what we've seen since 2016 at literally at all these locations. And maybe the strongest basis relative to recent histories are at that Columbus, Kansas location down southeast, relatively speaking. But again, pretty strong basis bids coupled with futures prices that have been strong, following right along with the chorus of what's been happening on corn and soybeans. Closed yesterday, lead contract at 598.5. July at 606. 606 futures for July. Farther out to the west, there's a lot of wheat. We have some drought concerns, wonder what we'll have, et cetera. So that seems to be the conundrum for wheat, that balancing the price opportunities that are out there with the risk and uncertainty of production that we face out in some of our key wheat areas out to the west. And we are seeing decent export movement for wheat. I think this last week, about 15 million bushels of all U.S. wheat, had a 7.3 million bushel export week relative to where we've been in recent weeks. Not too bad. So I think that the hope is that export demand will continue there to grind along in a positive way and to support wheat prices. But I think it's without question that the strength in the other two legs of the stool for Kansas in terms of futures markets and corn and soybeans sure seems to be having some carryover effect on the wheat market.
Again, Dan has taken a look at those basis levels and has charted them out nicely for you producers to review in his weekly notes on the trades. Those are posted on agmanager.info as we speak. So producers, have a look. And Dan, we appreciate the input. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Take care.
He's along with us each Friday to hash over the grain market developments. He is a grain market economist with K-State Research and Extension, Dan O'Brien, from his office in Colby, northwest Kansas. Next up, after the break, that word on a new initiative to promote advanced irrigation technology in a part of central Kansas with a unique water demand situation. K-State has a direct hand in that project. You're listening to Agriculture Today.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're tuned into Agriculture Today, and now to let you know about a significant new 3-year project about to begin in central Kansas, K-State Research and Extension being a collaborator here. This is to address a long-discussed water availability challenge in the Rattlesnake Creek Basin and how that affects irrigation agriculture as well as the Quivera Wildlife Refuge in that area. Along with us now, a couple of those who are deeply involved in this project as it'll take place. Heidi Mehl is with us. Heidi is with the Kansas Field Office of the Nature Conservancy. She's the Director for Water and Agriculture Programs there. Also, K-State's Jonathan Aguilar, who is a water resources engineer for the university. Heidi, what about the history of the situation that has prompted this project? Could you go over that briefly?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So we have an amazing number of resources in central Kansas. There's some very productive irrigated agriculture that forms the backbone of the economy for that region. We also have the Quivera National Wildlife Refuge, which provides crucial habitat and crucial stopover for migratory birds along the Central Flyway. And Quivera National Wildlife Refuge is fed by Rattlesnake Creek, a relatively small creek running from the southwest to the northeast there in that Great Bend Prairie region of central Kansas. And a few years ago, the state did an investigation and found that there is a hydrological connection between the groundwater of the region and the stream flow in Rattlesnake Creek. And because Quivera National Wildlife Refuge is a senior water right holder in the basin, that set up this question of how to keep enough water in the creek to satisfy Quivera's water right. But of course, we also don't want to compromise the economy and the productive agriculture in the region. So we applied for this grant from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we're successful in our application. And the grant is to look at new irrigation technology and how we can get that into the hands of the producers to help them more effectively manage their water resources.
And it's toward that latter end where Jonathan comes in and shares what he's been learning so far in technology implementation. You've been evaluating, Jonathan, as we've talked before, several alternatives in the water technology farm project itself. You're going to bring that to this project as well?
Yes, good morning also, Eric. And the water technology farm has been a crucial component here why we were involved in this project, because in the region where we are going to have this project is actually a nearby water tech farm was operational during that time. And actually, there's still something going on at this moment. And we've learned something from that area, and the producers are really eager about how they could now use the information that they got from those tech farm and implement them into their own fields. And so with this project, there will be cost share in the technology because technology is going to be involved. And of course, technology is not cheap in some cases. And so there is this opportunity to be able to chip in with the technology and be able to use them into their field. We do have an engineer, a private engineer that will be going around and help them out in terms of the design of their system. And of course, there will be some agronomists that will be involved also. So this is a multifaceted look at the technology, not just on the efficiency itself or the irrigation system itself, but this is more of a multidisciplinary approach in the system, and even the economics. So involved in this project, they will look at their books and see if this is something that they should be pursuing even after the project.
Might mention here, Jonathan, the keynote irrigation technologies specifically that will be implemented in this effort. We've visited about these before, the drip irrigation systems, soil moisture sensors. These are the kinds of things you're hoping to introduce to that region.
That is correct. And what we have found out as we were trying to put this proposal before is that as we are learning about the technology, we are learning also that some of the producers are not just keen on one type of system, but they are looking at different systems that could be used in their operation. We've said that MDI might be one of those, but we are opening it up with the approval of the agencies that are involved. We are opening it up to other types of technology that could be usable in their system, because we don't want this system to be operational just during the project years. We would like this to be sustainable over the years.
Heidi, the scope of this then, how many producers do you anticipate, or how many operations, or how many wells, however you gauge that, be included in this?
So the original proposal was for 25 pivots, that we would do conversions on 25 pivots. And we would also like to add in at least 10 fields who are using the CanSched, which is the irrigation scheduling tool, and the soil moisture probes without any necessarily upgrades to the pivot packages, so that we can do a little bit of comparison on how those fields perform compared with the ones that receive the new technology. We might be able to make that funding stretch a little bit further. So if there's enough interest, we'd love to enroll more than 25 fields, but that's our initial goal. And for us, for the researchers, we're interested in how their yields perform, whether there's an improvement in water use efficiency, and whether there is an ability to achieve the yields that they want to achieve while pumping less water, because that will benefit the overall issues in this area between the groundwater and the stream flow. The more water we can leave in the ground, the better chance we have of keeping that water table high enough to keep the stream flowing. So, we want to help the producers be as efficient and productive as possible without compromising those yields on their fields.
One other thing here, Jonathan, is that you're hoping that producers who participate in this will, in effect, compare notes on what's working, what isn't, learn from each other along the way, correct?
Yes. 25 is just a drop in the bucket of all the farmers in the area. So we consider this project as more of a catalyst to be able to really get the others to see what is working in this region and have them be interested in improving their operation, from irrigation application to scheduling to even just marketing their produce here. We hope that we could see that even though we could achieve a reduction in water, the economic viability of the region is still going to be long-term will be better. So we hope that we could at least initialize something that the community is going to be excited about and looking forward.
It's worth noting here, Jonathan, that there is another partnering organization, and this is of irrigators in that region in and of itself. It's called WaterPack, and it's been established for some years, has it not?
Yes, and they are really a very big driver on this project because they are composed of producers in this area, and they are really eager to be able to show that technology could help them in trying to solve the issues within the Quivera area. And of course, it's not just water, it's not just the economy, but this is just one of those puzzle pieces that could possibly help them in solving the issues within that region.
Heidi, the end result here could be highly important for not only that part of the state, but other areas where irrigation resources are candidates for conservation as well.
Absolutely. That has been one of our goals all along, is to demonstrate practices that work that could be exported to other areas. We have many other groundwater management districts a little further west in Kansas that might also benefit from this technology. So this could absolutely be a pilot for those regions, and we will be sharing and disseminating our results. Is
there some place that interested parties can go to learn more about it then?
Yes, we will have information at each of the USDA service centers in that regions, and the Groundwater Management District number 5 in Stafford. They are a partner on this project as well. They'll have information in their office, or you can email me directly. It's heidi.mehl@tnc.org, or call me at 785-233-4400.
Very anxiously looking forward to seeing how this unfurls over the next 3 years. Jonathan and Heidi, thanks for your time and letting us know about this right here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
With us, Jonathan Aguilar, K-State Water Resources Engineer, and Heidi Mehl, who is the Director for Water and Agriculture Programs in the Kansas Field Office of the Nature Conservancy. Again, this project will be taking place over the next 3 years in the Rattlesnake Creek Basin in central Kansas, which is aligned closely with the Quivera National Wildlife Refuge in that area. We'll be back with more for you in a few moments. This is Agriculture Today.
With the shortage of primary care physicians, especially in rural areas, health education and disease prevention are vital. K-State research and extension programs address quality of life, personal development, and health behaviors across all life stages of all social economic groups. To learn more about health education, one of K-State Research and Extension's 5 grand challenges, visit www.ksre.ksu.edu.
You're listening to Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network. Now in our 97th year of broadcast service to agriculture in Kansas and the Central Plains. Eric Atkinson with you. Now, today's agricultural news headlines, courtesy in part of DTN. With the Democrat Party now gaining control of the U.S. Senate, the Agriculture Committee's ranking member, Debbie Stabenow, will reclaim the gavel now as chairman. Senator John Boozman of Arkansas, expected to become the highest-ranking Republican on the committee. Senate Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee Chairman John Hoeven of North Dakota will now become the ranking member, and Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon, the subcommittee ranking member, is positioned to become the chairman there. The incoming Biden team has been reaching out to people in agriculture. The North Carolina nominee for EPA Administrator Michael Reagan met virtually with 16 members of the Ag CEO Council earlier this week. The Biden transition team put out a news release about that discussion, and it stated that the new administration will work closely with agricultural producers to find, quoting here, practical, common-sense solutions to environmental and economic issues. The chief economist for the American Farm Bureau Federation, John Newton, told DTN that the Ag Council is focused on working on agricultural priorities in a bipartisan fashion. What were the actual acreages, yields, and production of this past season's crops? We will soon have the answer to that question from the USDA. Here's more from Gary Crawford.
Coming up this Tuesday, USDA will publish what essentially is the final acreage, yield, and production estimates for this past season's crops.
There'll be certainly some changes around the edges, but we wouldn't expect any big surprises there.
USDA Outlook Board Chairman Mark Czekanowski says in some years, like last year, there have been some meaningful revisions in USDA's January crop estimates. You remember this time last year, weather did not cooperate with farmers trying to get the harvest done.
There were still large portions of the corn crop up in the Dakota areas and other parts of the upper Midwest that weren't even harvested, so that added some level of uncertainty last year.
But of course, as we know,
this year all the crops got out of the field relatively timely and in good shape.
So not a lot of change expected in the crop estimates, but Tuesday could still provide some surprises with USDA's release also of a report on grain stocks and on winter wheat seedings, all of which will be out Tuesday noon Eastern Time. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And the USDA has rolled out its new Quality Loss Adjustment Program. This for producers incurring commodity quality losses from natural disasters. The USDA's Stephanie Ho tells us about it.
A new USDA program is aimed at helping farmers weather crop quality losses due to natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods, snowstorms, wildfire, and drought.
For drought, producers are eligible for QLA if the loss occurred within an area in a county rated by the U.S. Drought Monitor as having a D3 or higher intensity level anytime during 2018 or 2019.
Farm Service Agency Administrator Richard Fordyce says payments under the Quality Loss Adjustment Program will be based on a formula.
When applying, producers are asked to provide verifiable documentation of losses. For crops that have been sold, grading must have been completed within 30 days of harvest. For forage crops, a lab analysis must have been completed within 30 days of harvest.
More information is available online at farmers.gov/quality-loss. This is Stephanie Ho for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
China has opened its own hog futures market, the culmination of a years-long effort to create a transparent pricing mechanism for one of that country's most valuable agricultural products. Today, traders, producers, and other market participants began buying and selling contracts for live pig deliveries for September, December, and March of 22. Expectations are that China's hog populations, the world's largest, will continue to expand after earlier being decimated by the deadly African swine fever in 2018 and 2019. Large price fluctuations have accompanied the recovery in that country's swine population over the course of the past year. Now on to this week's Kansas Wheat Scoop. Here's Marcia Boswell.
Looking for a creative challenge to start 2021? Brush off your mixer, don your apron, and develop your own original recipe for the 2021 National Festival of Breads. Entries are accepted January 8th through February 22nd, and winners will receive cash prizes and baking bundles from sponsors Kansas Wheat, King Arthur Baking Company, and Red Star Yeast. According to Cindy Falk, co-chairperson of the event, and nutrition educator for the Kansas Wheat Commission, the National Festival of Bread celebrates the creativity of America's home bakers. Our goal is to connect these top competitors to the wheat farmers and the industries that put that bag of flour into their pantries. The nation's premier yeast bread baking contest is the only baking competition of its kind, but virtual entries for 2021 mean expanded opportunities for both adult and youth competitors. Entries for the National Festival of Breads must be an original yeast bread recipe, must use a Red Star yeast product as a leavening agent, and 75% or more of the total flour in the recipe must be King Arthur unbleached wheat flour. Looking for inspiration for your entry? Check out these stories of past winners of the contest. Rochelle Hubsmith from North Logan, Utah, was the 2019 champion in the home baker division. Her winning recipe was chai ube rosette rolls. Rochelle Hubsmith's grandmothers always had homemade bread ready as a snack, a tradition she has carried forward to her own children. Her winning recipe was anything but traditional, using purple sweet potatoes she spotted at a farmer's market, adding chai, her family's favorite spice, and rolling the dough into rose shape using fondant techniques. Ronna Farley from Rockville, Maryland, was the 2017 champion. Her winning recipe was seeded corn and onion bubble loaf. Ronna Farley makes her own creative baking challenges by incorporating ingredients from other countries and cultures that customers purchase at the grocery store where she works as a cashier. Her inspiration for her winning entry came from closer to home, incorporating a family corn pudding recipe into a loaf of bread. Lisa Keys from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, was the 2015 champion. Her winning recipe was smokehouse cranberry cheese bread. Lisa Keys described herself as a self-taught, trial-and-error cook who loves to experiment with different ingredient combinations. Her winning recipe was a tribute to her mother-in-law's love of local, farm-fresh ingredients and healthy foods by incorporating flavors of smoked cheddar and the soft texture of tofu. Read the full set of rules to perfect your entry and learn more about the National Festival of Breads at nationalfestivalofbreads.com. For Kansas Wheat, I'm Marcia Boswell.
Thanks, Marcia. And we'll return shortly here on Agriculture Today.
When you are in need of timely, reliable, and trusted information, K-State Research and Extension is here. Whether it's organizing people, information, or resources, they have the necessary tools. Community comes first for K-State Research and Extension. For more information and to connect with your county's extension agents, visit www.ksre.k-state.edu.
Finishing out this Agriculture Today, we've for you the latest on Kansas agricultural weather, courtesy of the Weather Data Library at K-State and climatologist Mary Knapp, K-State Research and Extension. Good to visit once again. It's been several weeks now, Mary. So what we'd like to do initially here is recap the month of December. We haven't had that opportunity yet. What were the numbers telling us?
Well, the numbers were telling us basically that we were warmer than normal, although not as warm as we had for November. We were just under 4 degrees warmer than normal statewide, and that was pretty evenly spread across the state. The north central was the hot spot. It averaged 34.6 degrees, which is just over 5 degrees warmer than normal. The west central was the cool spot. It averaged 32.7, and it was just over 2 degrees warmer than normal. On the precipitation side, we did fare pretty well for December, keeping in mind that December's accumulated normals are not particularly high. Statewide, we averaged just under an inch, which was 97% of normal. But again, it was highly skewed. The southern divisions were all at or above normal. Southwest was almost exactly normal. South Central was about 1.5 times normal, and Southeast was just under 1.25 above normal. So again, a fairly beneficial moisture along the southern third of the state. Move north, and it's not quite so good. Northwest did fairly well, but West Central just had about a third of their normal precip, And again, we're not talking a lot at this time of the year. They average 0.18 of an inch. So as it goes, it was probably in the middle of the pack for December precip, but it didn't go very far towards erasing drought conditions, particularly in the west.
Then as we turn to the calendar over to 2021, finishing out late December and now into early January this past week, there was appreciable snow in the latter part of last week to replenish at least a few of these drier areas.
Yes, and actually it was not just snow. There was actually some rain to go with it before it transitioned to snow. And so the central and eastern divisions fared really well, 3 to 5 times their normal precip in those areas. But again, there was a fairly sharp gradient across the distribution. Some people got quite a bit, and others didn't get much. When you talk about the western divisions, not very much at all. The Northwest and West Central averaged nothing for the period. The Southwest averaged 0.03 of an inch. So again, not much to make inroads on the drought there. Southwest, it still has some lingering extreme to moderate drought in the southern and western corner of that Southwest division, but it's a much more widespread as you go into west central and northwest Kansas. Where we did see some improvement in the conditions were in parts of central Kansas, southeast and east central. We carved back on the moderate drought in those areas and even erased some of the abnormally dry conditions on the southern edges of those areas.
And on the temperature side, well, it's rather mundane. It's seasonably cool or cold, whichever way you want to describe that.
Right. The week actually ended up being a little bit warmer than normal. We had a cool start to the period. The coldest temperatures of the week were at the end of December, just in time for New Year's, where we were talking single digits in the west and low teens in the central and east, so pretty darn cold. But then we ended the week on a much warmer note. All of the highs for the week were on the 4th or 5th, which, again, that Tuesday, January 5th, was the end of our evaluation period. And we had highs 65, 63. Those warmer highs were in the west central and southwest divisions.
Well, then, to the outlook, and as moisture needs go, modest prospects, to put it that way.
Well, we look at the January outlook, and it favors wetter than normal conditions across the eastern divisions and equal chances for the central and western division, which would be pretty favorable. But when we look at the more short-term outlook, if we look at the QPF, which is the quantitative precip forecast for the next week, we're basically looking at very little moisture, and most of that's going to be concentrated in the southwest division. They may see as much as 1/10, maybe even 1/4 of an inch. Higher amounts over towards the eastern plains of Colorado, but most of Kansas, they're looking at nothing to maybe 1/100 of an inch, and that goes from today through January 15th, next Friday. If we go out to the 8 to 14 day outlook, that is a little bit more favorable on the precipitation, but again, it favors the eastern plains of Colorado and the western portions of Kansas. When you get into central and eastern Kansas, there's a slight chance for it to be drier than normal, and that carries us through the 21st of January. So we'll have, it sounds like if the January outlook verifies, we'll have a wet end to the month rather than a wet start.
And on the temperature side, we've been referring to the warmer than normal winter, and you say that we may, in fact, return to higher temperatures.
Right. Again, when we look at that 8 to 14 day outlook, it's a fairly strong pattern favoring warmer than normal conditions across the entire state. And indeed, in going through the entire high plains up to the Canadian border. They are talking about the possibility for an Arctic outbreak, but it looks like at this point that will swing to our east, run down through Missouri, and then hit the Gulf Coast, where they are expecting a fairly good chance for cooler than normal conditions from South Texas all the way up to the Carolinas.
All right. Well, Mary, thanks for joining us once more. Next Friday, we'll visit again.
Thanks, Eric. We'll look forward to talking with you.
She's Mary Knapp, climatologist, K-State Research and Extension on Kansas agricultural weather. Our time's away once again. Enjoy your weekend, and we thank you for tuning in. Eric Atkinson here for Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.